Hi, it's David Cowan. I'm back with case number 5 of our Out of the Vault exhibit. And here we're going to take a look at some items both related to Alexander Hamilton and to the man that killed him in the duel, Aaron Burr. But first we're going to take a look at what's known as a Treasury Circular. This is an item signed by Hamilton as Secretary of the Treasury, and it's going to harken back to the previous video, the previous case that we did. And recall that large spreadsheet where Hamilton is amassing all the information for all the revenues and expenditures of the United States. And on the revenue side, he has to deal with all the port collectors, over 60 of them. And so in this circular, he's asking them not just for information, but how that information should be presented to him. In this case, he's simply asking it for it to be alphabetized to make it easier for them when they bring all this information back together. Later on in this document, he deals with the issue of leakage or evaporation on distilled spirits that are to be exported. Should you be taxed on the full amount? Often these casks are sitting there for several months. They're going to evaporate. Therefore, there's going to be an abatement of 2% that will take into account this leakage. We also have a rare item from Hamilton in this case. It goes back to the time period when we had a quasi or undeclared war with France during the period 1798 to 1800. The French had been seizing and mauling our shipping, particularly those ships that had been trading with Great Britain. And so we sent over some emissaries. We were trying to resolve this through peaceful negotiations. This is the famous XYZ affair, and it didn't look like that was going to happen, and therefore the United States started to raise and train an army. And George Washington, of course, is around at this time. John Adams is president, and the nominal head of the army is going to be Washington, but who's actually going to train and lead the troops? Well, Adams doesn't like Hamilton, but Washington insists, and therefore Hamilton becomes Major General of the Army. And in this pay order, you can see underneath his signature that he's signed MG, which stands, of course, for Major General. The undeclared war was resolved peacefully through diplomacy, and so the army was disbanded. Later on, if you wanted to disparage Hamilton, when people wrote of him, they would say Lieutenant Colonel, referring to his rank during the Revolutionary War, and not respond or write Major General. We're next going to turn our attention to the duel between Hamilton and Burr. And while I often hear how divisive politics are today, and they are, back in this time period, you had the titular head of the Federalist Party being killed in a duel by the sitting vice president. And so some of the backstory of that will take place in this case. We'll talk about it. And the first item we have is a check drawn on the Bank of the United States branch in New York. Recall the bank, a Hamilton-inspired institution, will have branches around the nation. In this particular case, it's a Burr check drawn on that bank. But like so many others, Burr couldn't really get bank loans from this bank. These banks were Federalist in nature, the other party, the party that Burr is not a part of, and therefore he came up with an idea or a scheme to create a bank. It's known as the Manhattan Bank, and it was actually chartered in Albany as the Manhattan Water Company. And Burr enlists Hamilton and others to help him endorse it, this Manhattan Water Company, to bring fresh water to New York. But in the end, he buries in some codicils in this document that the water company can act like a bank and do pecuniary transactions. And so he's going to open up alongside the Manhattan Water Company, the Manhattan Bank. This Manhattan Bank, of course, is going to become Chase Manhattan and then become J.P. Morgan Chase. And to this day, that is why J.P. Morgan Chase's symbol is a water pipe. We have an exhibit right now at the Municipal Archives in New York City about this whole story, unfortunately closed right now due to the COVID crisis. Now, one of the reasons you wanted to open a bank was to get bank loans for yourself. This was quite common at this time period. And so when the Manhattan Bank opens up, Aaron Burr does in fact take loans from the bank. The museum recently purchased some items that detail how Burr borrowed from the Manhattan Bank. You can take a look at these. They weren't in the case, but it shows and demonstrates that Burr took loans. He was actually overdrawn in this case, but he did it to purchase real estate. Another object in the case we have related to Aaron Burr is from when he was a lawyer in New York. And here he's trying to help a woman procure a divorce from a husband who is both a drunkard and abusive. So we can paint, at least in this letter, Burr in a little better light. In the case, we also have a set of replica pistols from the Duel. Now the originals are at J.P. Morgan Chase, and the exhibit team that created the Municipal Archives exhibit, that's Sarah Poole and Maura Ferguson and Kristen Aguilera, and I went to see those original ones. But for now, we have in this case and in the museum's collection one of the some 1,200 replicas that were made in 1981. And when Lin-Manuel Miranda came to the museum to do research for the show of musical Hamilton, we took this picture posing with the pistols. There is controversy surrounding whether Hamilton did throw away or waste his shot at the duel. I believe that he did, because he wrote before he went to the duel that he was going to not only throw away his first shot, but even give Burr a chance on the second one. And we know Hamilton was very forthcoming, very open, particularly when you think about the Reynolds Affair and the Reynolds pamphlet that he wrote. And therefore I want to take Hamilton at his word that he would throw away his shot. We also have in the case a book that was published shortly after his death, and it includes not only the funeral procession, but also the orations that were given, particularly Gouverneur Morris, who gave the main funeral oration. And he did it with Hamilton's children, the sons, standing by his side. And I thought it fitting to conclude with the final words that Morris said that day. "I charge you to protect his fame. It is all he has left. All that these poor orphan children will inherit from their father. But my countrymen, that fame may be a rich treasure to you also. Let it be the test by which to examine those who solicit your favor, disregarding professions, view their conduct, and on a doubtful occasion ask, would Hamilton have done this thing?" I'll be back again next week with another edition of Out of the Vault.